again, my name is Hoong Phang. I'm a physiotherapist from Propel Physiotherapy. And it goes without saying, just to give you a little bit of background on myself, I've been working with people living with traumatic brain injury and neurological diseases and disorders for the past 9 to 10 years. And I was reflecting on that, thinking to myself, wow, when you say it out loud, it really puts a date on me. So as for the introductions, we'll save it at that. And I'm going to share my slides right now so that we can all kind of follow along a little bit easier. I think Tamara mentioned if there are any questions, I'll try to answer them kind of like at the end of the presentation. I think it's a little bit easier to kind of have a collective group or discussion at the end. Also, full transparency, I'm not very good at multitasking. So if someone did have a question, I may not even see the raised hand or anything like that. I'll be too much in the zone. So I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just legitimately have difficulty doing more than two things at once.
I have your back there.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much. And I will share. And you can see my screen there. Is that okay?
We can.
All right. So I've already given you my introduction. So what do we do at Propel Physiotherapy at this clinic that I'm part of? We provide physical rehabilitation for people living with catastrophic neurological and complex orthopedic injuries, and people living with traumatic brain injury. Some of the services we provide are physiotherapy, kinesiology and exercise, massage therapy, yoga therapy, and or yoga classes pre-COVID, now virtual classes, as many of us have learned to kind of learn to go along with. Mindfulness coaching, pelvic floor physiotherapy, and pediatric physiotherapy, which is more of like a specialized subset of physiotherapy. Home-based physiotherapy we provide, so that's going into someone's home, their residence, their long-term care facility, their condo, apartment, to provide in-home services. Aquatherapy, fancy way of saying anything water-based, and select advanced technologies, something that we can discuss a little bit more in the presentation at the end. All right, so what's really nice is this kind of slide here depicts and kind of summarizes what I think the presentation is all about. It's how is brain injury, physiotherapy, exercise, how are they all related? How does the body speak to the brain and the brain speak to the body, and the relationship between how one can influence the other? And it's not always just a one-way street. So that's why I entitled it Brain Injury, Physiotherapy, Exercise, and Beyond, a complex relationship between the brain and the body. These two pictures here I chose because kind of summarizes what we want to get across today in our presentation. It's how does physiotherapy, when we're working with your muscles, your bones, your joints, your range of motion, your balance, your strength, things like that, how does that help with your brain? And then vice versa, how does your brain help with all those other things I just spoke about? So if we can target one, we can target the other. And if one goes up and does well, the other one will subsequently go up and do well in addition to that. So some goals and objectives for today. I want to discuss some common physical and neurological issues that do arise after a traumatic brain injury, outlining the importance of physiotherapy and exercise after a brain injury. We're going to go over some of the barriers that clients face and patients face, and some of the strategies physiotherapy and exercise also implement to help combat that. And last but not least, we'll review some physiotherapy guidelines and some of the best practices to be implemented to address these issues. So after a brain injury, you may experience some of the following. Now, This list isn't completely exhaustive. It's more of just like a highlighted list of some of the things that physiotherapists and exercise professionals do come across in the clinic and in practice. And we're often addressing these things as we're trying to get our clients stronger and better from a physical and neurological perspective. So headaches, whole body pain or focal body pain, soreness, balance dysfunction and dizziness, overall decreased mobility and movement, maybe like tight muscles, spasms, hypertonicity, decreased strength and endurance. And sometimes this comes in the form of focal decreased strength. So maybe one side of the body or a limb or the trunk, upper or lower extremity, or maybe it's just kind of globally having decreased strength and endurance. Emotional dysregulation and mood changes. And again, this is not an exhaustive list. However, it is something that we often use our physiotherapy skills and exercise skills to help combat, either as a primary or a secondary kind of issue. All right, so let's talk about the first tidbit that is often a concern from many of our clients, and it's pain and soreness or headaches. And the barriers that our clients face with this kind of presentation is it does put a halt to the day, both mentally and physically. And these symptoms of pain, soreness, headache, it's not only we do something physical and then we feel this. It could be a cognitive strain or a stress too that brings up this pain and soreness. And as a physical therapist and an exercise professional, we do need to keep that in mind, especially when we're trying to get people stronger. How do you get someone stronger if you're trying to do something and it just flares up their pain and soreness or their headaches? There are some strategies we have in place. I've listed them here. Manual therapy, which is a really popular form of hands-on therapy that helps to provide some symptom relief so that our clients can participate in certain movements or exercises to get themselves stronger on a more permanent basis. Oftentimes, skilled therapists will pair their manual therapy with exercise or an active physical therapy program so that the client feels good. They're able to do the recommended sets and reps and duration, and then gain that powerful and really meaningful improvement to their physical abilities. We take a look at tailored movement programs to address any postural dysfunction and to improve efficiencies throughout the body. So if we can make someone a little bit better with their posture, better with the way that they're able to carry their own body, we know that from an efficiency standpoint, they're not burning as much energy to do that same task. And maybe that takes away from being fatigued and tired, and then that takes away from them being in pain or sore. Other strategies that are a little bit more educational would be self-pacing, energy conservation, and education on activity guidelines. So perhaps each client is a little bit different. We can discuss lists of activities that flare the client up and make them not feel so good, and other activities that are like, hey, you know what? This is not too bad. I can do this, and it doesn't really elicit any of my pain, soreness, or headache symptoms. And as I mentioned earlier, we do have mindfulness coaching and meditation where we engage in body scans to really decrease that persistent thought and cyclical thought on pain and soreness that someone may be experiencing, and bring the awareness to different parts of the body in a non-judgmental way, where the client or the person can take ownership over that issue. Another common symptom in presentation is complaints of balance deficits, dizziness, and immobility. And a barrier for our clients is it's kind of a cycle of inactivity and decreased participation throughout the community. So, for example, you may want to participate in exercise and physical activity, but you have feelings of poor balance and a fear of falling, right? And therefore that stops you from participating. And if you're not participating and trying new things, and you're sitting down most of the time and not being as mobile, that actually adds to poorer balance deficits. So when that happens, it becomes this cycle of, I want to get my balance better. I want to try things, but I'm really scared of falling. Therefore, I won't do it. And then, we're kind of stuck in this little bit of a rut. Some of our strategies from physiotherapy and exercise may be as simple and straightforward as practicing safe and novel balance tasks in a controlled environment and in a monitored environment. We often do look at appropriate mobility aids and gait aids, footwear to set up our clients for success. And that doesn't necessarily mean we stay on the same kind of gait aid or mobility aid throughout the entire duration of physical therapy or exercise. It can be progressed. An example that comes to mind is a client that was starting off with really big orthoses, so a CAFO, which is a knee, ankle, foot orthoses. And gradually, as they became stronger, we started to wean them off of this kind of assistance. And with that, they are now ambulating with less and less assistance. But I don't think we could have gotten to that point without giving them that kind of support. So almost like a tapered support system from an external machinery. And physiotherapists and exercise pros will often look to challenge your balance to be better. So it's kind of a scary task, right? We're asking you to get your balance better by challenging your balance. And we want to not only take a look at the muscular system, but also sensation, proprioception. How does your vision play a factor into it? How's your vestibular or your inner ear health going to influence your balance from a basic standpoint and from a really higher level or dynamic standpoint? And yeah, last but not least, making sure you're strong enough with all the smaller muscles that are involved in balance. And this kind of ties into how we involve our yoga therapists and yoga instructors into our practice, where they may be able to take on clients that are a little bit higher functioning to involve them into a group setting as appropriate, given any lifting of restrictions. In this case right now, it's a lot of virtual group settings. And there are other modifications to yoga, such as chair yoga and adaptive yoga, so everyone can participate. One of the more common themes that we see with our clients is concerns about strength and endurance. And this limits people's participation in exercise or physical activity because you're unable to kind of like fully commit to a exercise program, or you're not getting the full benefits of exercising because you can't push yourself as much. And there might be feelings of consistent weakness and fatigue. From our physiotherapy and exercise protocols, one of our strategies is to really understand what intensity is, because intensity is different for different people at different periods of times in their life. So a really extreme example, but a good one to kind of keep in mind, is someone who's 80, 85 plus years old exercising at this intensity, right? It may not be the same as what 18, 25-year-old exercising at their high intensity is. However, when you do the comparisons, that might actually be enough for that 85-year-old to get the improvements that they need at that stage of life. We often look at that similarly with someone who has had a brain injury. We need to understand what their heart rate thresholds are, what their musculoskeletal thresholds are, and what their ratings of perceived exertion are. So if we're able to calibrate that together and come up with like a consistent number, or maybe even a consistent self-report, we can reapply that and put the reps and the sets in to really get the benefits of exercise tailored for that person. Some of the other strategies to get people more involved at their own pace is taking a look at walking programs, fun outdoor programs where it's a self-selected pace and it's something that might bring their intensity to a meaningful level, but not enough to flare up any of their continued symptomology. And I stress here at the bottom the importance of consistency, discipline, and accountability for any of the strength and endurance things. Classically, Rome wasn't built in a day, and we got to look at small gains over the course of a time leading to the big results. I know that's, it sounds kind of cliche, but we have seen quite a large body of evidence to suggest that if we did something consistently at the right intensity over a period of time, we are due to see gains and changes in the body. This can be as intense, quote unquote, for the person as sitting up taller each day while they're, in their residence, instead of fully relying on laying back in a bed. Or it can be as important as going for walks every single day rather than, maybe sitting down to watch television after a meal. Last but not least, emotional dysregulation and some of the mood changes that we see after physical activity, physiotherapy, and exercise. So with changes to emotional regulation and possibly poorer mood after a traumatic brain injury, we do tend to hear from our clients that their interactions and their social life with their friends, family, colleagues, it's just not the same. There's something different about it. And obviously from a physical therapist perspective, that's not my, profession in psychology or social support that way. However, again, a really big body of evidence would suggest regular exercise at a correct intensity can help to improve self-reported quality of life and self-reported mood. So it's really finding something that's like happy for you, that you enjoy doing, and that really pushes you to have the physiological effects of regular movement and muscles contracting. So with that said, the benefits of exercise, I think this slide kind of summarizes things pretty well from a physiological perspective, and we'll dive into a little bit of the nitty gritty here. There is that neurogenesis, which is really a fancy way of saying it creates more connections in your brain. And the whole, like, it makes you smarter or sharpens your mental acuity is definitely supported by research. And what happens is the brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, fancy protein in our supporting cells. Essentially, when you have regular exercise, it promotes that, and that BDNF is necessary to create more or new nerve cells. And this is particularly important post-injury. There's the hot term or the catch term of neuroplasticity. That's great. And, it's the way that the brain heals itself and patches itself up. However, in order to promote that, to make that even better, we can do something on our own or help ourselves do the healing. And a lot of that form comes in the form of activity or exercise. So I'm going to play a little bit of a clip that demonstrates how a group of people living with traumatic brain injury have come up together across a yoga group yoga class. And not only has that group yoga class kind of done the whole physical activity and exercise part for them, but it's also the socialization and the mood and mentality. So give me a sec. Let me just load it up here. And you can let me know if you hear it, Tamara, maybe a thumbs up or a thumbs down.
It's a little quiet.
Who understand me or at least are empathetic.
Empathetic to life with traumatic brain injury.
I was seeking all sorts of excitement and danger. I was drinking a whole heck of a lot.
Inhale, arms sweep high, struggling just to read and write and understand things and make decisions and think things through.
Cat Blue says it feels like having a concussion all the time. The injury started in an abusive relationship and heightened after a bad car accident.
So the impact was pretty hard. He was probably going 50 to 60 miles an hour.
It's part of life. It's the new reality.
Retired Marine Corps veteran Jimmy Works suffered multiple TBIs during combat.
Creating space for gratitude.
They're survivors finding healing through Love Your Brain Yoga.
And then exhale.
The nonprofit offers a free 6-week program in cities across the U.S. Through meditation, gentle yoga, and a discussion group, participants can better cope with their injuries and gain a support base.
There's days where doesn't even feel like I have a problem, and then the next week I can be completely struggling with it.
But these programs open the arms to us.
And while the program is ending, they'll leave with a newfound strength and community.
It's really reminded me of how powerful resilience is.
Amanda Brandeis, 10.
So that's a good kind of like quick demo on how a group exercise program can really help people living with traumatic brain injury. I think what they also allude to is, some days maybe you feel pretty good, right? And you're like, I don't know if I really need this, support or this exercise, or physical activity, but it's the consistency of it. So not only doing these beneficial movements and exercises and physical activities when quote unquote times are bad, but doing them when times are good too, right? You're almost like paying yourself dividends for the future and creating like that preventative measure for yourself. All right, so I'm looking at the time. Oh my gosh, it's like 20 minutes or so of listening to me talk and maybe a couple of videos. Everyone, I can't see everyone's screen, but I can't see everyone participating in anything like that, but that's okay. Usually around this time, I start to kind of fidget. I feel a little bit like awkward. I want to move, right? I got into this profession because that's what I do best. So I'm going to take everyone through just some gentle movements we can all do in a seated position. And then one of the movements is actually, it's actually just, if you're able to, you're getting up out of your chair, okay? So just push my camera back a little bit. First movement I want you to try is actually just bringing your neck, and again, if any of these movements feel sore or hurt, just go up until your abilities. You don't need to push through them. This is just something to kind of get us not sitting and staring at a screen for another couple of minutes, okay? So we're gonna look down towards our front left armpit area. And with your same hand, you're going to gently bring your neck and your chin down. And we're targeting some bigger muscles here that hold up our neck. If your neck is too sore, don't worry about it. You don't need to crank on it. We're just holding it there for a couple of seconds. Once you feel like you've got a good stretch, you can relax, come back to the center. You're looking down towards your right armpit. Really gentle with the same right arm. I'm using it to kind of leverage the top of my head, or my top of my head rather. That's just stretching out the opposite shoulder and neck. Try like 20 seconds. Great. Okay, so in between there, just roll the shoulders a little bit. I don't know if you can see, but my back is off of the chair. I'm kind of just sitting up a little bit taller. In the middle of the diagram, we see this person kind of having hands on their hips in a seated position. And what you can't see in the static photos is they're actually slumping a little bit, and then they're sitting up tall. So I want us to try slumping and sitting up tall together. So we're going from the slump to the sit up tall, slump, sit up tall. Good stuff. I can see some of us doing it. Awesome. Sit up tall, go at your own pace, and maybe think about like 20 seconds worth of doing this. Good. I'm going to do one more for us. Excellent. All right. We're going to jump around here with these exercises. Sitting again to the edge of my seat, I'm going to have both my hands kind of just gently resting on the back of my head. I'm not cranking my head or my neck. It's almost like I'm, hands above your head kind of thing, right? I'm thinking about showing off the ribs to the sky and then coming back off of it. So from the front view, it kind of looks like that, like a morning stretch. And then from the side view, going to look almost like that. Okay, I'm trying to get most of we call it the thoracic spine or the middle of my back into an extended position, because we were just doing this, probably looking at a tablet or a phone. We're going into the opposite direction. Okay, awesome. And then the last one we'll skip to is we're going to try standing up and sitting down 5 times. And it's as simple as you think it is. From this position, leaning forward, standing up, come right back down to a seated position. I'll do that 5 times with you. There's no rush. If you feel like you can't do this, not a problem. If you feel a little bit dizzy, take it a little bit slower. I got one more here. All right. Okay, great. So according to my clock, probably 1 minute and 30 seconds, 2 minutes-ish of just, like, let's call it movement, right? Any kind of movement. It got me out of looking at my screen presenting, probably got you out of looking at your tablet listening, right? And just take a mental note of how your body feels, even just after 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes of global movement, not very specific to you, just not staying static, okay? And generally speaking, studies have shown you feel better, all right? So some options for exercise and activities. Your exercise and activity, it doesn't necessarily have to be structured. You can get out and do something fun. Some great activities are walking, wheeling, biking. If it's wintertime, cross-country skiing or tobogganing. If you're not into that or you're unable to do that, that's not a problem. Other things like, modified Zumba, modified yoga and dance, Tai Chi. And my suggestion right now, especially during this pandemic that we're slowly getting out of, is to actually look at other companies and other places that are offering virtual classes and be on the lookout for complimentary sessions. I was just told, who was it the other day? My trainer gave me the heads up that many of City of Toronto's parks, they're offering some complimentary group sessions. Maybe that's not up to, maybe that's not in your wheelhouse, not a problem, but that's funded fully by the government. So some of our, even with Bayer this month, there is complimentary group exercises, and I really, really encourage everyone to try those things. From a physiotherapy guideline on how much should I be doing if I'm trying to just start the exercises is find something that you like to do, first of all, because we know adherence is really important. The good old quote of some is good, more is better. I feel like that's a starting point, right? I feel like if we can do that or have that involved with us, that or part of our system or part of our day-to-day, that's really going to be a good starting point. And it's roughly, if we can do 3 times a week, 20 to 40 minutes of a session at a moderate intensity. And again, the intensity part, it's different for each person, okay? So when you're doing this or you're trying to do something like this, it can really be something as a walk, right? That really brings you to a moderate intensity. And you can break it up into smaller intervals, right? And if you were to break it up across the duration of a week, those little parts add up to the bigger results. I think the end message is always to try to keep it fun and simple and work towards success. If committing to 3 times a week feels, oof, that's a little bit too much, I got a lot on my plate, try once a week, right? And then build up to there. I think it's important as therapists and exercise professionals that, you know, when you are working with people living with traumatic brain injury and even other diverse populations, like once you hit one successful milestone, the likelihood of you hitting another successful milestone is a lot higher. If we jump right to whatever the standard is or whatever, you know, someone in an ivory tower has written down on a piece of paper for everyone to eat off of this plate kind of thing, that's a good way of breeding not success. Yeah. This is a shameless plug by myself. Mind to Muscle Connection, our very own Shreya Maharaj, certified exercise physiologist with Bayer, on all Fridays in June from 1 to 2:15 p.m. There are links available. You can go to bayer.org to sign up, or you can message me after and I'll send you the link and I'll send you Shreya's contact. And it is a catered and tailored exercise program for people living with traumatic brain injury. An example of Shreya doing some exercises. Be on the lookout for freebies online as well from trusted health professionals. And I think from, there was a video of Shreya exercising. So this would be an example of a pretty intense exercise from Shreya. Not everyone needs to do this. Selected this video because there's enough movement in here for anyone to consider this pretty high in intensity. And obviously these movements can be adapted and modified for everyone's abilities. In this specific example, she's just jumping around. So. Just notice the background. It's like it's winter when she's filming this, so good for her. All right. There's a popular video out there. It's a talk from Dr. Mike Evans in regards to if you had 30 minutes only a day, what can you really do to be successful at exercising or having physical activity? And you know, spoiler, you can look this up online, but the spoiler alert is across populations, across different diseases and disorders, across different injuries, the most bang for your buck, the best value for your effort, the best, you know, the best squeeze of the lemon, so to speak, would be to try to do some form of ambulation, rolling, or moving throughout the community for 30 minutes. And it's at a self-selected intensity. As long as you can break it up into that 30-minute interval and really commit to it a day, you will find success in not only preventing a lot of the secondary complications from not being active, but also promoting your own physical activity. So I think for now, that is the conclusion of my presentation.